Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Hi, peeps.
Hey, preschool peeps. Today, the title of the episode is Food for Thought. And you may be wondering, what's this food for thought? No, we're actually
talking about food, which is maybe one of my favorite topics. But
it's one of my favorite things to do for sure. Food for thought. We're here to talk about food. An episode that was inspired by an experience Alison had. So you go ahead and tell your experience.
Yeah, so I was recently in another state for a wedding, and I stayed at a hotel, and I saw a woman at the buffet in the morning with her children, and I was watching her, and she was using food as a way to teach them not to waste, which I'm all about, like teaching children not to waste food, but she was trying to explain to them that you shouldn't waste anything in life, not food, not water, but then also said things like not to waste opportunities and not to waste your life away. And I'm like, why is this being related back to food? Which got me thinking, like, how much other stuff do we use food as lessons or in this weird way that causes us as adults to have food anxieties and food issues, which I clearly have. Okay, so that's what got me thinking that this is a potential topic of how do we handle food when it comes to the kids?
You know, I come from a generation, and probably many of our peeps do too. I come from a clean your plate. There are children starving. You have to eat everything on your plate. And I understand not wasting food. I totally get it. Perhaps actually then the portions should be smaller.
Yes.
How about that? Eat it all. Eat all the and you're right that does have an impact later on our relationship with food. That whole clean your plate.
Starving,
there are children starving. And so many of us grew up with that, whether the children were starving wherever in the world. It was different places. My parents used to talk about how when they were young, it was the children were starving in Europe. It was somewhere else when I was a kid, I think.
Yes. See?
Interesting. You know what? There are children starving in the United States too.
Why?
How come that was never taught?
I don't know.
There are children starving right here as well. That said, I'm not sure how me eating everything on my plate is solving
the
worldwide hunger crisis.
It doesn't, because it's not like that food you don't eat is going directly to those children who are starving. It's going in your trash can. Okay, so
right, we're not packaging it up and sending it to them. Now, I think a lot of people have realized, many people have realized we shouldn't be force feeding children. And in fact, that's part of policies in early childhood programs that children are not force fed. When I was directing a program, very often parents would come and say, I want my child to eat this sandwich. And we would have to explain, I understand, so do we. However, our policies and regulations state that we're not permitted to force feed children. And we had to explain that many times. So very often, like people who are in my college classes, when we talk about health and nutrition and they write papers about policies having to do with children and eating, they'll write things about not being allowed to force feed children. This has become part of the general knowledge. But then they'll do things like, if the question is, if the child refuses to eat, what's the policy? What's your refusal to eat policy? Every program should have a refusal to eat policy. If you don't have a written refusal to eat policy, you need one to inform families about what will happen. That refusal to eat policy should say, we are not permitted to force feed children, and force feeding children has a negative impact on them for years to come. It affects their relationship with food. But very often students will write things like, we're not permitted to force feed children. We're going to have a 3-bite policy. Well, that's force feeding children.
Yeah.
You have to take 3 bites. Why do they have to take 3 bites?
I hear that all the time. take 3 bites and then you can have the cookie or whatever it is. And then I feel like now you're using the cookie also as this motivation of, which is another food issue.
That's not
you know?
good. It's not good. It's not good. If you talk to people who are experts in children and nutrition, they tell you not to do that. They specifically say, don't do that. Don't use the sweets as a reward for eating the stuff the kids don't want. Because then what do children grow up only wanting?
Me. Yeah. I am obsessed with cookies. So, yeah.
Welcome to my world. And I can't eat very sugary foods, and I hunt down things that I can have. It creates this terrible relationship. I think the same is true when we say to the class, okay, if everybody behaves this way over this amount of time, we're going to have a pizza party or an ice cream party, or no, we're rewarding them with junk.
Just food. Why
and
is
food, it shouldn't be food. The reward should never be food. The reward should be extra time doing something you enjoy doing.
Extra time with something. Go outside an extra 20 minutes somewhere. You know, like it should be spending time together is the reward, not something food. And it usually is ice cream parties, popcorn. The movie and popcorn thing was a big one when I was working at one school. Oh, you can earn a movie and we'll pop popcorn for you.
Popcorn's a choking hazard. There's a little known fact.
Have these things, and you're just
it's a choking hazard.
It's the same thing also with I think the potty training issue. Oh, you can earn an M&M by going pee-pee on the potty. And okay, why? Oh, you should go pee-pee on the potty because it feels good to go pee-pee on the potty, not with an M&M.
Is that why so many people use the restroom and then head
I
to
think
the kitchen?
so. It's like this unusual thing, right?
I don't know. I think we really have to think about, I was going to say that 3-bite policy really doesn't belong in an early childhood program. It really belongs maybe more at home to the parents. But if you're a family member, I'm going to say this. At home, it does the same sort of psychological it creates the same sort of issues at home as it does in a program. Maybe that shouldn't be it. And what the refusal to eat policy can be is send what you want with your children, right? If you're a program where families send things in and they'll send sweets for dessert, send what you want with your children. If your child wants the sweets first, we will let you know that. And then you can reconsider their dessert.
You reconsider what you're going to pack in that lunch. Because I used to just say, here's your lunch, eat, open it, and eat whatever you want. Because in my opinion, as a teacher, I'm like, your parents approved all the food that's in there. So eat it in whatever order you want to eat it. I don't care. And I'm not going to sit there and micromanage 12 children's lunch boxes either. You know, it's your lunch. Eat it in the order you want. Just like when I go on lunch, I eat my lunch in the order I want to. Okay, so I'm assuming if you sent it as a parent that it is an approved food to be eaten, you know? So so if that happens and I see, hey, this student is only ever eating the cookies, then I might tell mom and dad, hey, he's only eating cookies, you know? So you might want to reconsider
the cookies.
Packing the cookies or something if you don't want him to have that. If you don't care, then you don't care. Some parents are like, they don't care.
Some
They're like,
parents
I just want my
don't
kids to eat
care.
so they're not starving. I don't care what they eat. You know?
There we are in early childhood programs saying to the child, no, you have to take X number of bites of the sandwich before you can have the cookie. But then when you go to the family and you say, here's what's happening, and the family says, oh, I don't care. He can eat the cookies.
They just don't
I don't care.
Yeah.
What was I arguing with the child for then?
Things to fight about that aren't even there to fight about. You know? Like, stop micromanaging, stop stressing out over rules that you're making.
Right.
If you pack it, you can eat it. That's you know, and if it's there, I'm going to eat it.
If you pack it,
you can eat it.
If you pack it, that kid's getting that cookie. The policy needs to be, we're going to let you know. We're going to let you know, families, and you get to decide. This is ultimately up to the families. The families get to decide, is it okay with them that the child eats the cookie first? I've had families say this to me too. Oh, I don't care if he eats the cookie, but you know what? Instead of putting 3 cookies in, I'm just going to put 1 cookie in. So then maybe he'll head to the sandwich. Yeah. If that's the way they want to raise their children, they have a right to do that. I've also had families say, well, I don't want them eating the cookie before the sandwich. And then my response to that is forcing your child to eat the sandwich and withholding the cookie is setting your child up for issues with food in the future. So it would be better actually if you wanted to eliminate the cookie or replace it with something a little more healthy like a vegetable or a fruit.
And then if you really still want the cookie, then say, okay, for afternoon snack, you can have the cookie. And by then they've already eaten their lunch or whatever. So maybe that's what you do for these centers that pack the snacks separately from the lunch. Not every center does that, but some do, and you could say, okay, the cookie is your afternoon snack. By then he's eaten his sandwich and fruit or whatever, and then go for, and if he didn't, he still gets a cookie for snack,
And this all holds true no matter what setting you're in, whether you're in a center-based program, a public school, family child care, or you're not listening to us because you're part of an early childhood program, but you're a family and you're interested in what we say about preschool, which is really, if we harken back,
we started
this podcast. We started it for families to understand early education. So I think we really have to think about what impacted me as a child, that whole story of children were starving somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what that had to do with me. It confused me when I was a child. It still confuses me.
I think it's also like
and again, reduce their
Please
portion.
do. I think you're like, okay, everybody's got food that they like and dislike. I'm an adult and I have food that I do not like to eat. And I still choose now as an adult not to eat it. Children also are allowed to not like certain foods. They might not like the taste. They might not like the consistency. They might not like the texture. They might not like the smell. And they are allowed to have those opinions about food. So when you sit there and you say, no, you need to eat the entire thing, that's just, you're not taking their feelings into consideration at all, which is a different issue, that might not. It's related, but then I think that might seep over into a lot of other areas of life and not just food related. Then that child might start thinking like, well, my opinion doesn't matter, so why am I going to care? I'm going to be forced to do things that I don't want to do always. Why can't you have a meal and say, here's what is for dinner, and then have some like sort of, I think, safety meal of like, but if you don't want that, then you can have yogurt and fruit or whatever, something, so they're not starving.
Well, it's got to be something. I felt like when my kids were young, I was not a short order cook.
It's got to be
I'm not
something
making
easy,
1,000 dinners. But you're right. It had to be something easy. Like then you could go in the refrigerator and get
so you're
a
not
yogurt.
Something
really easy like that.
I'm not cooking you another meal. Here's the meal I cooked.
As we know from a prior episode, I don't like cooking much at all.
Here's what dinner is. Here's your small portion of it. It's there. But if you choose not to eat that, you can go get a yogurt. You can go get a piece of fruit, something. I'm not cooking for you, but there's some sort of safety food kind of thing so that you don't go to bed starving. But at the same time, here it is on your plate. You could try it if you want it.
Children don't naturally starve themselves anyway. If you ask your pediatrician, and at this point I think we should say if you have concerns about your child eating, then it should go to the pediatrician. But if you ask pediatricians, when you go with a young child and you say, I'm really concerned because my child's a very picky eater or isn't eating much, they will say to you, children don't naturally starve themselves. When your child is hungry enough, your child will eat. And it's better not to harp on it.
Well,
that's what the pediatricians are like. It's better not to do that.
What happens then when you keep harping on it is you teach children how not to listen to their body. All right. So like, I think everybody's got their own eating schedule. And I think it's there when they're a kid too, and some kids might need only 2 meals a day. But when you say, nope, we got to eat 3 meals and you have to eat them. Now you've turned off the signals that the child has of like, but I'm not really hungry, but I'm going to eat anyway, and now you almost have eliminated the signals that their body is telling them. I'm not hungry. I don't need to eat. And then your body gets used to eating 3 meals a day. And now they're eating more than they need when they don't have to.
We turn those signals off in early childhood programs all the time. As soon as children have a specific snack in lunchtime, we start to turn those internal signals of when you're hungry off.
I think
because now you have to eat on our school schedule. So it's the fact that they're in these programs in schools, and that they continue to be through their lives. I mean, it is in
Yeah.
particular to early childhood. There's a certain lunchtime in elementary
Yeah.
school, middle school, high school, that turns that instinct in us off to know when to eat, which is why we
Yeah.
graze all the time. We don't really know when
Yeah.
we're hungry most of the time, unless people are tuned into nutrition and their bodies and all that. We're not necessarily paying attention to the signals. Instead, we're looking at a
Yes.
clock. You know, it'll be on a weekend. My husband and I are running errands. I will look at the clock and say, it's 1:30. We should have lunch. That is
Yeah,
not a
no.
statement about
If
hunger.
it was like, hey, I'm hungry, let's go have lunch, that's different. But you looked at the clock and all of a sudden your body's like, oh, it's 1:30, we didn't eat yet. Oh my God. And you start to worry because you didn't eat yet, but your body was not hungry before.
Well, I mean,
know.
I'm a planner, so I'm thinking if I don't eat around 1:30, 2 o'clock, I'm not going to be hungry for dinner, and that would be a crisis in my world. So
See all these food issues? Because lately what's been happening for me is I've been
Yes.
eating lunch later and then not been hungry for dinner. Okay.
That's
All right.
a problem for me.
So there were a couple days that I was like, nope, just eat dinner because you don't want to go to bed hungry. And then there were other times, it was so hot this week here, that I was like, I don't feel like cooking dinner. I'm going to skip it. And I skipped dinner. And you know what happened? Nothing. I still went to bed and I wasn't hungry. Yes.
Really?
Nothing happened. So then I was like, maybe I should just listen to my body sometimes. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what you're saying.
Know what you're saying.
I don't know. It was really weird.
I don't know.
You know what?
That is really weird. I'm sure I will start, as if I couldn't live off my own body for a while. I'm sure I'm going to starve if I don't eat my meals. We have been because we've been trained from the time we're very little children. What does eating look like in your culture, right? In my culture, eating was like, oh my gosh, these were the mixed signals we got. Maybe some of our peeps can relate to this. It was, you would go into family things and it would be like food everywhere. There was always food involved in every family gathering. Like, there's food galore. People are so happy to feed you. But I would walk into places, and I had a great aunt, my Aunt Faye, that every time we walked in, she would look at us and go, you all got so fat. Well, you're feeding me endlessly.
Well, like, and that's not.
Yeah.
And
everybody's got an issue with
that's
food in this family.
Food issues.
You all got so fat, and then she would hug you like, I don't know. And then if some of them would look at you and go, you're too skinny, while she just said I was too fat.
These mixed signals.
You're too skinny. You should eat. We would go visit relatives. It was like, here, eat. We still have a thing with my uncle, my grandmother. Whenever we visited my grandmother, she would put out melon. She always had. And back then it was like seasonal. But somehow she always found the cantaloupe and the watermelon. So she always had melon. And we still have a thing when we visit my uncle. He'll look at me and say, you want some melon? And then we both laugh, but actually he brings out some melon. Like, you have to have it. Yes.
I know.
Yes, she knows my uncle. He has melon.
I'm pretty sure
if you would like it, because that's what you do for company.
We weren't even at his house.
There you go.
Yeah,
we picked him up and went for dinner. I don't know. We just have all of these things, and I think this whole take 3 bites thing is an issue. I think reward with food is an issue. I think forbidding sweets until you eat XYZ is an issue.
Let's eat your feelings kind of thing. Oh, you're having a bad day. Let's go for ice cream. That used to be a big thing when I was like, let's go for ice cream because you're feeling sad. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, food solves my problems. I'm not sad anymore.
It was like this, Allison. It was like this. Sad? Have some ice cream. Mad? We can fix that with ice cream.
Let's go get ice cream.
Let's celebrate with ice cream.
Which led me to loving ice cream, which I still do.
Me too.
Because I feel like no matter what the situation, it just solves anything. But the fact that I believe that is because my childhood I was taught that. Okay.
Right. We have to be so careful. And if you're listening, by the way, and you're wondering, well, what should the children, like what portions of what, if you're unaware, there's a wonderful thing called, oh my gosh, now I'm going to think of it, the MyPlategov, right? MyPlategov. But I can give you a quick rundown. The USDA says that for snacks, children should have 2 food groups. It can be milk or dairy,
A grain, fruits or
a
vegetable.
fruit
Yeah.
or a vegetable.
Yeah.
You pick 2 of those, 4. And then for meals, they should be offered all 5 food groups except for breakfast, which is so interesting to me. So for lunch and dinner, all 5 food groups, and those are milk, dairy / dairy, meat or meat substitute if you don't eat meat, vegetable, fruit, grain.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the 5 food groups. Breakfast, according to the documents provided for like school programs and stuff, no meat or meat alternative. No, not the sausage, not the bacon, no meat.
I'm sorry, but then is it really breakfast if there's no bacon?
Not in my world. But also the bacon's probably doing me in, so maybe we're better off not giving the children. I love bacon. I love bacon so much that I would eat it every day. I know. I know. But there are people totally raised without pork products, and they also are fine. Don't look at me like she's aware. If you're on YouTube, you can see how she's looking at me. There are people totally raised for their cultural reasons without pork products.
Yeah, they are.
And okay,
they're fine.
They're fine. You don't have to have the bacon. So yeah, no meat or meat alternative at breakfast.
Yeah.
So breakfast then is grain, a fruit, a vegetable, a milk / dairy.
That's not how I eat breakfast.
Yeah, let's just say. It's also not how I eat breakfast. You can get more information, folks, by the way, by going to MyPlategov. I believe that's the website. You can look up like USDA recommendations for children's eating. Look up the portion sizes, please. We give them way too much food.
Yes. That's what used to be for
Portion
people who
matters.
are in my generation. It used to be the food pyramid. And they switched it because I guess the food pyramid, which we all learned when we were kids, was wrong.
They switched it to the plate, right? So the plate has sections where it shows you how much of your meal should be fruit, vegetable, meat, dairy, whatever.
Control, I think, that the pyramid was not doing. Yes. Which also leads...
No, the pyramid
have
was
at
like,
it. As long as you have everything that's in the pyramid, we don't care how much of it you have. And you must have it at every meal. Which, again, I was raised on the food. That whole food pyramid didn't change until I was like in college. Okay? Maybe even after that. I don't even know. But I mean, so for decades, we were all learned about this food pyramid that wasn't correct. And so,
there are things that we learned for decades. Things we learned for decades that are like nonsense. So, okay. I mean, the food pyramid wasn't nonsense, but I think the plate is better.
Yeah. It's
what they have now. Yeah. Right, the symbol. It's better. So I hope you'll think about your food policies. You need a refusal to eat policy, and it needs to be kind to the children and not set them up with issues with food in the future. And I'm sure you can find information about that too. And people now are sitting around going, do we have a refusal to eat policy? Looking at each other. And at home, really think about the messages you send. Okay, speaking of home, we have a new country and a new state in our top 5s. So we're excited to welcome them. First, Iceland.
Iceland? I can't believe Iceland's listening to
Iceland.
I don't know. Amazing.
I don't know if I ever told you the story, but I was speaking at a conference, an international conference that was being held in New York, and this was before the pandemic, someone came over to me, introduced herself. She was from Iceland, and she said, I would love to bring you to Iceland, and then the pandemic happened.
I would love to go to Iceland. I heard
I almost had a chance to go. Yeah, well, I didn't find out.
Maybe it'll happen. So if you're that person, You know how to reach Cindy through here. See what the podcast is now doing? We're just connecting people in ways we've never connected before.
And we have something coming end of summer, beginning of fall, or I don't know, heading toward fall, that is going to connect people that we are super excited about. So stay tuned for that. In the United States is a place I have been, and that I'm sure many people have been because of a major attraction that's there. Especially, well, actually, there are a few major attractions there. Yeah. And that is Florida.
Welcome, Florida.
So welcome to our top 3, actually, Florida. We're glad you're listening in Florida. We hope you're not too warm.
Because it's hot here.
I've been to Florida. It's hot here. I can't even imagine down there. I've been to Florida. I've been there in the summer. When I was young, I was there in the summer. I will admit it. I forgot about that.
It's hot,
and it was so hot and humid. Much prefer Florida in like the spring or fall or winter, right? So fun, by the way, if you haven't done it, to be in the Northeast, like where we are, or in an even more wintry place. Get on an airplane, get off the airplane in Florida, and it's a whole different atmosphere. And I love palm trees, and I will go anywhere with palm trees. So there you go. Palm trees to me say fun, joy, and vacation.
Right.
Because I didn't grow up around them.
I wish we did.
I wish we did. They're so fun. All right. Well, on that note of things we wish were in our environment, we will catch you next time on the podcast, peeps.